I just purchased this pre-built workbench. It's available from Amazon or Harbor Freight for $139, and I was truly amazed at the quality. It comes with a vise, 4 drawers, and it's really nicely built. A couple of simple modifications I made to this workbench made it even more versatile. First thing I added was this tool caddy. It adds about 5 inches to the width. It's a great place to store your tape measures or your chisels, whatever you want to get off the work surface, but within easy reach. I also added these lockable workbench casters made by Rockler that allows me to move this workbench anywhere that I need it to and then lock it in place. So let's get started with building the tool caddy. So to build our little tool caddy, what we're going to do is take some 1x3 oak that I got from Lowe's, and we're going to go ahead and cut a dado groove into that to accept our piece of 1/4 inch oak plywood. I've got the dado cutter in here, and I finally got undersized dado cutters because plywood obviously isn't exactly 1/4 inch. They make special cutters that'll go ahead and compensate for that small variation. I got mine from CMT Tool off of Amazon. It's a great little kit. I think it was under like $40, but it's well worth it because you can have a nice tight fitting dado anytime you're putting in a plywood board. It's always a smart idea if you have a fence on your router to put in these feather boards. It helps keep your board down so you get a nice even cut. So that new bit gave me a really nice cut. I'm really pleased with it. But the best part is our undersized plywood, which actually measures 5.2 millimeters, fits nice and tight. Now for this project, what I did was I got 2 pieces of 1x3 by 6 foot long oak. That's all we're gonna need. And I'm gonna cut our second piece now. Our first cut is going to be the length of our workbench, which is exactly 5 feet. So I'm going to cut this on the miter saw. Our second cut is also 5 feet in length. So we've got our 2 long pieces, which are 5 feet wide. I'm going to make the total width of our little tool caddy 5 inches. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 5 inches. The joinery we're going to use for this project is just going to be a real simple rabbet. I'm going to cut that on my stacked dado cutter. So this is what the stacked dado cutters look like when they're installed in the table saw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple measurements, make sure we're right at 3/4 inch. It looks like we're good. Now I just set the height of my dado blade to cut about halfway through the material. Dado cutter is going to come really close to my fence. So what I do is I take a board that I'm going to use as a sacrificial fence to allow the dado cutter to groove into that instead of grooving into my fence. I got these little clamps from Rockler as well. They work really good. You can use anything to clamp this down, but these are pretty convenient. You just drill a 3/8 hole in your board and now your fence won't be damaged. You can just knock this little ridge off with a chisel. So here's what our rabbet looks like, and our side pieces are just gonna glue a nail into it just like that. I've mocked up the tool caddy so I can go ahead and measure for the bottom shelf. I've got 4 1/4 width here, plus a 1/4 inch dado on each side. That'll bump me up to 4 3/4 for my total width. 58.5 is my length measurement with that 1/4 inch dado. That gives me a total length of 59. If I cut it that close, I'll probably have a problem with fitment as well as contraction and expansion. I want to go ahead and give myself about between 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch less to allow for that panel movement. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract that, and we're going to cut our plywood to size. So I went ahead and mocked up our little tool caddy. This is what it's going to look like. And the only addition that I have included is this little spacer block that's going to go in the center. It measures out 4 inches by 2 inches, and it just seemed like the center needed a little bit more support. So now before I glue it up, I'm going to sand it with probably just 120 grit sandpaper and spray on some shellac or polyurethane, whatever I have laying around, just to protect the wood. Couple coats of shellac and we'll be good to go. I've mounted our longboard of our tool caddy to our workbench so I can go ahead and mark out for my mounting screws. Now, the reason I'm doing this before it's fully assembled is because the tool caddy is relatively narrow and it's going to be easier to get my marks and drill my holes before it's fully assembled. I went ahead and counterbored everything. Now I'm just going to drill my pilot holes with an 1/8 inch bit. We're just going to go ahead and apply glue to our rabbets and glue and nail everything together. Now I'm just going to drive a couple brads in. A little bit of glue in this rabbet. And one thing that I like to do is I make sure, since I sprayed shellac everywhere, that I sand it out of the rabbet joint, because that's going to give you a better glue bond, wood fiber on wood fiber. Another smart thing to do is just tape it off so you don't have to sand it. A couple more brads. Now we're going to go ahead and install our 1/4 inch plywood. So what I did was I measured to my center line, put a little bit of glue on here, and it just gets glued and nailed in place. So before I put our front piece in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the workbench using 8 by 1¼ inch wood screws. Now we just glue up our front piece, and that'll finish the tool caddy. Now a couple nails in this piece. Caster installation is really simple. Just measure 2 inches from the bottom and mark a line. And take your caster, mount it on that line, and mark your holes. You're just going to be drilling 2 pilot holes. Take your caster, the supplied screws, now attach the caster to the mount. A 9/16 ratchet tightens down the caster. So you simply push down on the lever with your foot and it allows you to move your workbench wherever you need it to go. Once it's there, just flip this up and the workbench is locked in place. $70 from Rockler.com. One other addition I did to the Workbench was add this little 6-inch C-clamp vise. It's completely removable. It's only $40. I got it off of rockler.com, and it's a nice little addition because you always could use a second vise on your Workbench. So for a little over $270 and an afternoon's worth of work, you can have yourself a really versatile Workbench that's going to last you for quite a long time.